your relationship with your wife through this situation,
Mm,
through this whole process,
mm-hmm,
up until this like turning point. It was going down, it was spiraling. You had you guys almost got divorced. Like it went
mm-hmm,
really to the extreme. Um,
mm-hmm,
and then you started finding that personal development, things started to change. What are
mm-hmm.
some of the things that helped you most going from like the lowest to where you guys were to where you are now? What were some of the practices or things you had to work through or learn to get there?
That's a good question, dude. Um, I think recognizing that the reality that um, we always have the power and control to change our circumstances. Like if we don't like our circumstances, we truly have the power and control to change them. Um, I think that recognition there opened my eyes up to the fact that if I want to change something, I must get into the driver's seat of my own life. And if I want to influence other people for the better, and I want to be somebody that is the kind of man that I want my son to grow up to be, and the kind of man that my wife deserves, I I must start leading myself in a way that has much higher standards of expectations of myself and of the others that I allow into my circle. And this realization that um, I if I'm not willing to get into the driver's seat and to start taking on that ownership and owning my decisions, owning the outcomes of those decisions, I'm not going to improve. So that was probably one of the biggest things, is to understand that I could change my circumstance. Like I didn't have to be in a place where I was imagining and thinking about what it would be like to have my son every other weekend, or you know, I didn't have to be spending time Googling, do you in fact have to um, uh, have your name listed in the community newspaper if you file bankruptcy? I'd heard that somewhere. I don't even remember what the answer was, but I remember Googling it. Like we were that close to filing bankruptcy. I'm like, is that true? Like people in my community going to know that I did it because it has to be published? And I didn't have to be in that place. I just had to dramatically raise the standards of expectations of myself and of those around me. I had to divorce myself from any excuses. I had to be vulnerable enough to ask for help, and to understand that the the success, when it comes to success and whatever somebody wants to define as wealth, whatever that means to them, whatever success and freedom means to the person, and your listeners and viewers are going to all have it defined differently. Whatever that means to them, it's achievable, but it's not going to fall in our lap. And I started to approach things the way I used to approach it, which was to see a problem and resolve it the way it needed to be resolved, by taking steps, by taking action. Like success, it values the action takers. It leans into action takers, right? Those who take action will find success faster and more frequently than people who don't. So that was probably the number one thing. Getting very comfortable with editing and deleting relationships, no matter who they were, friends or family. If they didn't have the if they didn't meet the standards of expectations, and if they were causing drama or conflict or toxicity, if they were at all distracting me from where I wanted to take my family, uh, then those relationships would get edited and in some cases get deleted altogether. And just to get very comfortable with that.
Mm.
Um, so those are probably some of the most key ones right out the gate, that when I
Yeah.
started to do those things and get more comfortable with them, and then realize that success leaves clues. Like I didn't have to recreate any wheels. I had to identify more people who represented the kind of circumstances that I wanted for myself and my family, and say, what is it that they did? Like, what do they do? What are their success habits? What do they say yes to versus what do they say no to? And then I just started following those clues and rinsing and repeating the things that had proven to be successful for them.
Come on, come on. When uh, this is such a fun conversation to me for me.
Cool.
Again resonates so well. When it comes to
Awesome.
raising your standards, how did you go about that? Um, yeah, how did you go about that?
Um, it was pretty obvious to me at the time the things that just were not representative of the person that I knew I could become, the person I knew was inside me. Like I knew there was a much better version of myself inside me,
Yeah,
and um, and I think I was pretty easily able to say, does that help me get to that better version or not? And if the answer was no, it was no. I developed core values, non-negotiable core values, which is a lens that I filter
yeah.
everything through.
Come on.
Um, but it wasn't that elusive to me, right? Like I knew like if I was 60 pounds overweight and I was driving through, fast food and Taco Bell and McDonald's and was, talking skinny but eating fat. Like it was, we all know that that shit's not good for you. Like it's completely nutrient absent.
Yeah,
It does nothing for us. There's nothing in it our body wants. We know that the gut and the biome in the gut is the second brain of the body. And why was I inflamed? Why was I, you know, cloudy headed? Why was I, tired all the time? Well, it wasn't that elusive to me. So I just started to really identify the version of myself that I wanted to become. And what was interesting though is that as I started to really key in on people that were living out the circumstances that I wanted for myself and my family, and what it was that they were doing and not doing, my what I saw I was capable of dramatically elevated too. So when I started this, I'm like, I'm capable of more. Like I can do more, I can achieve
wow.
more, but I I was that was a much lower level than it was as I started to associate with and earn my way to having a seat at the table of these others that I could have a conversation with and that would mentor me and coach me um and then all of a sudden what I originally thought I was capable of was a midget compared to like the behemoth of a giant that um, I realized I could actually become, and that belief and coupled with doing the work, like just built this flame into something that has created so much momentum that I truly don't even really recognize that old version of me in those circumstances, and I do not play small anymore. I haven't played small for a while, and you'd be hard pressed to stop the momentum that we have built at this point.